Hey, what's up? Sunzy here, and it's been a while since I've updated any content on YouTube. I've been kind of busy, plus New Year's and then Lunar New Year's is also coming up, so there's a lot of things going on right now. So I haven't found the time to actually make any keyboard videos, but we're back and also have a lot of interesting videos coming up, a lot of keyboards to talk about. So the videos will just keep on rolling in the future. So stay tuned for that. And so this is all I have right in front of me. I'm moving some switches at the same time. My desk is a complete mess right now, but I got rid of a lot of the box and everything. Got rid of all the other pieces that are not very important. I'm here to just talk about the essential parts, and I just want to keep this short and go straight into the build. So the keyboard that we'll be talking about today is the Endless 80 from KBD Fans. This is an interesting board. It's if you if you like configure everything, it's going to be about $500 for the board. It's quite expensive, and I actually do not recommend the board for the price, because if you actually do go for other boards like Glacier 80 or some other like lesser known kind of sites that make like better enthusiast type of keyboards, because the biggest thing about them is that they put a lot more like thought and care into the entire like structure and build process of the board. Also, most of them have these like insane gasket mounts. Also, they have like these PCBs with daughter boards with also like insane flex cuts and stuff. This is just a pretty generic PCB, even though it's labeled the Pixel Space from Pixel Space Studio. That was actually the one who made this board. Since it's like basically sponsored by KBD Fans, the PCB itself is a very KBD fan like quality PCB, this is pretty close to like the DZ60 or DZ65 like PCBs in general. So this is just a pretty generic PCB, no daughter board or anything, and doesn't flex very well, no flex cuts and stuff. So yeah, if you actually go for a more enthusiast kind of board, I would say that for the price of $350 to $400 something, even up to $500 something dollars, if you go for those boards at those price points, they would be a lot more worth it compared to what we have here. So for the price, I actually do not recommend the board, but some things that the board does have going for it is, one, it's pretty good looking, and two, actually I wouldn't say it's more readily available, because there's not much left in stock. There's only a limited amount of color options available. It was like the extras. So the group buy was last year. I actually noticed it, but I didn't get the board for the group buy. But once the extras came out, I had this build in mind, and I wanted to also try out the top mount that they were offering for this build, which is why I got it. So this is actually an extra, like keyboard extra run from KBD Fans. So I wouldn't say they're readily available, but there's like limited color options in stock right now. So if you're interested in how it looks, go grab one. But in general, KBD Fan keyboards are just easier to access compared to those like weird like third-party enthusiast keyboards that are all very insane. I'm sure all of you guys had the same experience. You would go onto YouTube, you'd see these like really crazy keyboard YouTube content creators tell you about how good a keyboard is, but never in your entire life would you ever be able to find it in stock or in some kind of like group buy something at any time on the website ever. So it's like, I know it's great, but it's almost like a fairy tale to me, because it's impossible for me to actually be able to buy this board because of how good it is, and everyone's constantly like just buying it out of stock. So at least for KBD Fans, they don't offer the highest quality of things for the fairest amount of price, but for the most part, if you wanted a board from KBD Fans, there's a high chance you would just be able to have the board from KBD Fans. I don't see it. I highly doubt there would be a case where like KBD Fans would have a board so insane that like everybody is simping for it and constantly buying it out of stock, and it's like a myth, you'll never be able to see it in your life. KBD Fans isn't that kind of site. Their boards are priced slightly high and the quality could be better, but at least if you wanted a board you can at least get one. That's kind of the sad reality of this community right now, is that a lot of the really, really impressive boards at a really, really fair price, it's impossible. You'll never see that board for like the rest of your life. It's just impossible. But one great thing about this board, that the last thing I want to talk about, and the most interesting part about this board, is actually this polycarbonate plate for this keyboard. And the reason why I want to talk about this one is, as you can see, there's like 4 screws on the top, 4 screws on the bottom. So this is like a top mount keyboard. So what top mount means is that this plate will be connected to the top case of the keyboard, and it'll be like secured with these screws. So it'll kind of just like be held in place. It'll be attached with the top case, and then the screws will be holding the plate, and then the plate will be holding the PCB. Now, the interesting thing to me is that this polycarbonate case, plate, I'm sure we're not, sorry, I bit my tongue. I'm sure that we're all familiar with polycarbonate plates, gosh darn it. So I'm sure we're all familiar with polycarbonate plates, and I've actually built a lot of keyboards with polycarbonate plates on them, but all of them were, they weren't soft. They were flexy, but they were like not soft. They weren't hard either. They flexed well, but they just weren't soft. This plate for a polycarbonate plate is actually, I don't know if this is the actual norm and I just had bad polycarbonate plates in the past, but this plate is actually super soft and flexy, and it almost feels like a palm plate in my hand instead of an actual polycarbonate plate. This is definitely a polycarbonate plate, but it feels like a palm plate, which is why that's like the most interesting thing to me about this board, is the actual feel of this polycarbonate plate that they offer you, that comes with this build. Another reason why I do not recommend this keyboard is because it does not come with a case at $500. I actually had to buy my own case from KBD Fans coming with the order, because I wanted the order to go over $500 so I wouldn't pay for shipping at all. So here's what we're going to do for the build. As you can see, there's like 4 screws on top, 4 screws on bottom. What I'm going to do is to maximize the flex of this board as a top mount. I'm actually gonna ignore these screws entirely and just pretend that they didn't exist, and I'm only gonna screw the 4 screws on the outer side to try to imitate or mimic the kind of like gasket kind of like bounciness of a board by leaving the middle section like completely free flow for the board, and just only screwing the outer side so the middle part of the board can flex to the max. So yeah, that's kind of my plan. Just because it has 8 screws on here doesn't mean you have to screw all of them, and with that I'm just gonna completely ignore that these 4 screws existed, and I'm only just gonna pretend that these are the only 4 screws that exist on this very soft and comfortable polycarbonate, but also basically palm plate polycarbonate plate that they gave me. So yeah, hopefully this board will hopefully this keyboard build will go well. We also have some very tactile Neapolitan ice cream switches from Canon Keys. They're like insanely tactile. They have like these really long ass springs in them. And I'm not done lubing them yet. There's still like 2 rows I have to lube. So once I'm done lubing them, the build will start. So the final thing I want to talk about before I get into the build of this keyboard is the plate foam and the bottom case foam over here. Now, these are really good quality foam. But they're standard KBD Fans quality foam, and that's not to say that they're bad, but basically every single board you get from KBD Fans, you'll have like similar feeling foam just like these, so there's nothing too surprising about them. Like if you order boards from KBD Fans, you can expect that this is the foam that you'll get. They're pretty consistent, but at the same time this is also quite boring. Now, whether or not keyboard foam actually like benefits you or not is becoming a much more harder question to answer, because back in the day, all people knew about was like, oh, foam, yes, just slap foam into board and mute all sound, but also makes the board stiff as fuck. So how foam actually affects the feel and sound of your board, how you should tune it, is a much more difficult question and requires a lot more experience and experimentation to be able to fully bring out the best form of the keyboard. But yeah, these are kind of optional. Whether or not I use them or not will depend on how, like, once I experiment with them, and I'll determine the best sound and feel for the board, and I'll come up with a conclusion. So yeah, I'm just gonna put these two away for now, and let's start the keyboard build. So this is the complete build of the Endless 80 keyboard. First things first, this is a KBD Fans keyboard, and the thing about KBD Fans is that they offer some pretty good things, but they're pretty consistent in terms of like the components that they're offering. So every time, if you get a keyboard from KBD Fans, my expectations for the board in terms of price would be around $200 to $400 is what I think would be more appropriate. I feel like this keyboard should be priced around $399 to maybe $420. So the price point of this keyboard, so the fact that this keyboard hit $500, it's definitely more expensive than I thought. So so if you guys buy keyboards from KBD Fans, I would say the correct price is a keyboard that would range around from $200 to $400. I feel like is the right price for it. If you're gonna get a keyboard from KBD Fans that is gonna go up to $500, you should really think about it. You should really take some time to really think about it. Now, before we go into the why, let's first go into the keyboard. It's this keyboard right here. So the Endless 80, I didn't think I had a chance to show you guys the case before, but this over here has a LED light basically with the caps lock. This will light up. Over here it says a gift from the future. It's not super obvious, pretty subtle. Over here, to match with the purple color, we have this here with the USB-C connector. The USB-C is attached to the PCB, so this is not a daughter board. Endless 80 is over here. We have a grill over here with LED lights. This is not as amazing as the Cyberboard because the Cyberboard has a LED panel, so it can do a lot more stuff compared to this. This can just do some insane lighting and customization with just the lights. So you can do some customization with the lights and just have different effects on it. So this is just kind of giving off that cyber kind of feel. And here's another Pixel Space logo over here. Now on the back of this board, you can see this big purple weight that says Pixel Space on it, and I quite like this weight. If you're gonna go for a keyboard with a weight, you'd better make sure that the weight looks nice, because weights don't do shit in terms of for the keyboard itself. So this is I like how it just stretches across everything and it looks pretty aesthetic. I hate weights that just take up the middle section as just this little rectangle in the middle. I think that is really, really ugly. So if you're gonna go for a weight, first of all, maybe you like your keyboards heavy, so you want a weight. And second of all, maybe you like the way how the weight looks on the board. So if you're satisfied with the look, that's okay. But don't think that a weight itself is actually gonna benefit you in any way. It's actually quite useless. So I'm not a huge fan of weights because I don't know what purpose they serve, but if they look cool, then they're cool. And for the keyboard itself, I'm really satisfied with this build. By not applying the 4 screws in the middle section was the right choice to make, because now there's a very, I wouldn't say as crazy of a flex, but there's a very obvious but also subtle kind of flex in this entire middle section. So pairing this with these tactile switches, which are Neapolitan ice cream switches from Canon Keys, they're really nice tactile switches. I like them a lot. I'm surprised with how good they feel in my hand. But with a linear switch, you'd be able to feel the flex more. But the danger with linear switches is that you have to bottom out, so you're kind of maxing the flex every time with a linear switch. And I'm not sure, this keyboard really wasn't meant for insane flex. The PCB obviously wasn't built for a really flexy kind of way because it doesn't have flex cuts or anything. So by using a tactile switch on this keyboard instead, you don't actually bottom out every time you hit the switches, but every time you hit the switches themselves anyways, the flex still occurs, but you don't have to force the PCB all the way down every time you want to type something out, because you're not really kind of bottoming out every single time. So the flex becomes a really subtle flex, not like a stiff flex. It's a really, really good flex, but it's also subtle, and it's It feels really amazing. Now, the sound of this board, the typing feel of this board, and just the board in general is just really, really good. And I would consider this board to be an endgame keyboard. I think the build that I did for this board is definitely endgame level, but I still do not think that this board is worth that $500 price point. Nor do I think that I have yet to see an actual KBD Fans keyboard to reach that kind of like over $500 keyboard price range, which goes back to what I was talking in the beginning. And the reason I say that is because KBD Fans offers pretty standard components and everything. So every time you buy a board from KBD Fans, depending on the mounting style and then basically just depending on the mounting style and the way how it looks, you kind of have like a good idea of what the keyboard build will come out as. But they kind of just offer you the same PCB, the same foam, and kind of like pretty standard plates that they have. So all KBD fan builds are going to be pretty similar because of the material that they offer is generically the same. Like this keyboard at $500, the PCB is not the size, but the PCB feeling itself is almost like the PCB from the KBD 67 Lite, which is $120. So the feeling of those two PCBs are exactly the same, which can tell you that KBD Fans kind of just like has a very consistent components. But when it comes to like premium builds, those components don't offer enough for the build itself, which then comes to other manufacturers like the Mode keyboards, the Glacier 80 that Group Buy ended not long ago, the Vertex Angle that the Group Buy has just started, the WooQ Studio Mammoth 75 that the Group Buy will end at the end of January. These are all manufacturers that do these Group Buys and just have like insane keyboards, and they all do something special. They easily can reach that $500 price point, but they all offer something special that no other keyboard kind of like is doing. You know, like they're more unique. KBD Fans keyboards, even though the design is unique, everything inside is not unique. And kind of like if you build enough boards from KBD Fans, it kind of just like it repeats itself. You feel like you're just building the same shit over and over again, which is why I do not think any KBD Fans keyboard has the potential of reaching that $500 price point, because the competition over there is just too high. And if you're not offering something that can like make people's jaws drop, then you're not really gonna be able to really meet the expectations of other boards that do deserve to hit that price point. So yeah, this is still an endgame keyboard build, but if I were to price this keyboard, I would price it around $420 instead of $500. Now the only downside for those boards that have like something unique about them and are all pretty insane is that even after the Group Buy finishes, you're gonna have to wait for probably around 6 months to a year to actually have them ship the board to you and to finally get your hands on that board. So yeah, it's just gonna take you're just gonna have to wait for a long time for that board to actually get into your hands, and that process is just really painful. And KBD Fans sometimes can just offer you some in-stock options if you don't want to wait, so that's at least nice, but you just can't really expect anything special from KBD Fans. But with enough experience and good lubing skills for key switches, and also with a good understanding of the different mounting styles of keyboards, even if you purchase a keyboard from KBD Fans, you can easily turn it into an endgame keyboard as long as you like the looks. Basically, if you have the knowledge, you can easily turn a good enough KBD Fans keyboard into an endgame keyboard. Like this is without a doubt an endgame keyboard. It's just when it comes to the details within the components, there could be more improvements and there could be more things to offer. So that's going to be the end of this video. Be sure to like and sub, and yeah, I have some more interesting videos that are going to be rolling, so I'll see you guys next time. Later.